When I wasn't closing as many deals as I wanted to, what I realized was the problem was I wasn't asking the right questions in my sales calls. So in this video, I'm going to cover the key questions you need to ask your prospect on just about every single sales call in order to close at 30, 40, or even 50+% on your calls. So let's dive in. Research has shown, guys, that the top negotiators and salespeople ask twice as many questions as the general population and as average. So first of all, you need to ask more questions than you probably are right now. According to Gong.io and Harvard Business Review, 11 to 14 is the right number of questions to ask in discovery. But as we all know, like if you've in my shoes and you've listened to over 15,000 sales calls across a variety of different industries, the right number of questions is highly, highly variable depending on your industry and your ICP. There's 4 main questions I'm going to cover with you guys in today's training. You need to know when and why to use each one of them. By the way, at any point in this video, if you want to go ahead and get a free question bank, actually 2 free question banks for both B2B and B2C with 30+ question examples you can tailor for your industry, go ahead and hit that. It's the first link in the description. So let's get you out of asking the wrong questions the wrong way. 3 pillars of effective questioning, guys. You need to ask more questions. As we just went over, successful negotiators and salespeople ask twice as many questions on average. And this correlation holds true across multiple metrics, whether it's mutual satisfaction ratings, long-term achievement, or lowest rate of implementation failures. You need to ask better questions, which I'm going to go into more in a moment. Quality matters as much as quantity, and strategic questions uncover deep insights, build rapport, and guide prospects towards clarity about what they want and need and your solution's value. And then you've got to avoid bad questions. It is true that bad questions do exist in sales. Stupid questions do exist in sales. Certain question types actively hurt your chances of closing, and I'm going to go over some of those in a moment. You've got to eliminate these from your vocabulary and your script. So let's start with that first. Bad questions that kill sales. Understanding what not to ask is just as critical as knowing the right questions. These common mistakes are going to trigger defensiveness, trigger sales resistance, and ultimately F up your sales process. The wrong timing. If you're asking yes or no questions at the start of a sales call, this is what I call control questions. Yes or no questions can only be answered with one word or can only be answered with a yes or a no. That is going to invite the prospect to not tell you much, which means you're going to have a very hard time in discovery. It's going to be feeling like you're pulling teeth to get any information out of your prospect. So don't ask yes, no questions or closed questions in discovery. This is going to set them up on the wrong pattern for the rest of the call. Unpredictable direction. You guys need to think like lawyers. Never ask a question that you don't know the answer to, except in discovery. Obviously, you don't know what their ultimate goal is. You don't know what their dream is. If you're trying to get the dream or the pain, you don't necessarily know that. You might have some guesses. But as you're getting into more of the control questions towards the end of the call, you want to ask questions where you kind of know where they stand already. Think of your call like a big funnel. At the start of the call, it's open questions only, and you're going to be getting a lot of data from the prospect. The middle of the call, it's going to be more balanced, and then at the end of the call, in the close, you're going to be asking control questions, which we'll get over that in a moment. You don't want to plant bad seeds or ideas that are going to go against how you want your sales process to run, such as, oh, you're going to do your research after this call then. That suggests behaviors that delay or prevent closing. You're incepting them into thinking they need to go do a bunch of research. Don't give away control with your questions. This would look like something like, oh, what are you looking for in a provider? That's going to put the prospects in the chooser frame. That's going to let them dictate potentially unrealistic criteria. This is especially dangerous in B2B vendor battles. And if you haven't seen our video on how to become an absolute weapon, a knife fighter in B2B, go ahead and hit that video. It's going to be linked somewhere around here. And then be careful about triggering with your questions identity statement. An identity statement is something like, I'm not the type of person who makes a rash, quick decision. That's an identity statement. It's going to be very hard to get someone off that ledge once they've declared themselves there publicly. Asking someone a question like, are you someone who likes to make immediate decisions or someone who likes to think things over? Well, that's kind of going to frame people as, oh, thinking things over is the better position to be in. So I'm going to identify myself as that type of person. Identity level beliefs about who we are the most difficult to change than the most stubborn statements we can make on a call, which is why we want to frame the call so that the identity level beliefs that shape the prospect's behavior that they're going to be consistent with are actually consistent with how we want our sales process to run and how we want them to buy. So let's talk about that more. Reframing identity question. Here's what would be bad framing. Are you the type of person who makes rash decisions, or are you an informed consumer who does all the research to make the most informed decision possible? The framing here makes thinking it over appear more informed and cautious and socially desirable. Better framing or good framing here would be, so are you one of those people that's going to get stuck with analysis paralysis, or are you someone who's going to take decisive action once they just have good enough info to be a successful person? This is going to reframe decisiveness as the ideal identity, making it more likely they'll identify with decisiveness and actually be decisive in your sales process. Here's some more good questions that drive sales. Powerful questioning techniques give you control, they uncover valuable information, and they guide the prospect towards commitment to changing their lives, changing their business. So, right question at the right time. Open questions at the start of the call. That's going to encourage detailed responses and build rapport. Questions you know the answer to. Ask questions where you strongly suspect the answer, maintaining control of the conversation's direction, not being surprised. Really important that I teach you guys that you guys adhere to one-on-one information exchange. Every time you give information, you get information back. This maintains balance and engagement. Reflective repetition. Oftentimes, the most powerful thing you can do, the most powerful question you can ask, is simply to restate their last statement with a question mark and an uptone at the end. So you're going to process it. This invites them to expand and say more. It's a way of getting them to negotiate against their previous statements. Question their questions. When someone asks you a particular question, again, as I taught you in our other video on Think About It, you're going to question, why are they asking me this question? So you can even ask them, oh, well, why do you ask? When they say, oh, what if we're not ready for 6 months? Respond with, oh, yeah, I mean, you can definitely delay as long as you want, but I guess why were you wondering about delaying 6 months specifically? Use assumptions to force clarity because people love correcting incorrect assumptions. Is it that you don't believe in the product or you don't see the value? Is it that you don't have the money or you're just not going to have the money for 2 weeks? When you start throwing out assumptions, educated guesses, people are going to want to correct those assumptions. Give them a chance to correct your assumptions, and that flushes out a lot of stonewalling and information hiding in the call. Logical breakdown questions, number 7, as described in our video on the Uber Black methodology, the meta sale methodology. Ask logical questions to ensure they're ready to purchase. You can also use logic to break down most common objections. And then identity level questions, you got to challenge their identity level beliefs with the questions that we're going to link in the description. We're actually going to give you a complete breakdown, a PDF helper of logical breakdown questions and identity level questions to sell. It's a downloadable question bank. Just go ahead and check out that link in the description of this video. Here are your advanced questioning techniques. Test your understanding. When someone says a statement or stakes out a position, start with, do I understand you correctly that you say, when you say XYZ, you mean ABC? This is going to correct misunderstandings, and it subtly questions their position. It puts pressure on them to reconsider the position they just staked out. Do I correctly understand you to say that you would not hire an external vendor unless they gave you a 25x ROI and took no time from you at all? Fear discovery. What are you most afraid of happening? What's the big concern here? What's the worst case scenario? This question brings up the worst case thinking and the big fears that you can then dispel logically. Comparison questions. Which would you rather do? Put down $70,000 on every deal or $6,000 one time? Maintain neutral. Tonality, if this sounds too obvious, it feels manipulative. Change talk versus sustain talk. I've taught about this before. You guys should know what change talk and sustain talk are. Now, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What are the pros and cons? These tip prospects into evaluating their current situation more critically. Now, really important tip, guys, the power of neutral framing. The power of framing becomes absolutely lethal in asking for comparison or what I call off-the-fence questions. So with this example from above, would you rather invest $70,000 every single time or $6,000 one time? You need to deliver this with utmost neutrality in your voice. So it doesn't sound obvious that you're trying to stack the deck and make one decision sound obvious. You're literally asking them for their perception and literally asking them for their preference. The prospect needs to feel like they're discovering their own values, not that they're just choosing from a preset menu that you control. They need to literally be able to think about it, and it should really be delivered with the tonality of which is better for you. Do you want to invest $70,000 of your own money every time you do a deal, or would you rather put $6,000 down one time? Which would work better for you? Complete neutral tonality. That's going to help them lower their defensiveness, lower their shields, lower their guard, and make a genuine evaluation. The comparison itself is going to do the heavy lifting while you get to remain in the position of the trusted advisor. So work on your neutral framing and neutral tonality. Now, let's talk about the question type sequencing strategy throughout the whole call. This is how you're going to build your call for best results. You're going to start with broad questions, open questions. They can't answer yes or no. They can't answer with one word. The answer requires multiple sentences, paragraphs even. The questions are going to be something like, tell me about. How did all this happen? What are your goals? Tell me the story. Why did you want to investigate X? In the middle of the call, you're going to get more confirmation questions. So is it more like X then? So do you really want to get more towards Y? So it sounds like you're aware you're leaving money on the table. Yes, that's a strict yes/no question. So you're willing and ready to change your strategy. Is that fair to say? How much longer are you willing to waste X without getting Y? These are building agreement and confirming your understanding of their situation. And then finally, at the end of the call, now you have your control questions, your yes, no, your either or, your off the fence questions, where they have to get off the fence. They can't stay in the middle position. And as you guys know, if you've ever done a sales call, the middle position is where maybe lives, and maybe is more deadly to you than anything else. It's more deadly to you than yes or no. Would you rather invest 3K or 30K? Would you rather invest now or wait until it gets more expensive later? Does this have everything you need to achieve your goal? Yes or no? Is the standard or the pro package the one that works better to achieve your goals? These are short, direct, and they're going to drive commitment to closing the sale. So that's how to ask better questions, guys. I hope that helped. Again, you have all the resources and questions you need. Just hit the link in the description and we will allow you to download them right away. And I'll see you guys in the very next video.